leaders call for unity. Groups of protesters take to the streets in a half-dozen cities to vent their anger and frustration at the election of Donald Trump. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. At this hour, we are seeing anti-Trump protests breaking out in a handful of major cities, including New York, Chicago, Philadelphia, and in Oakland, California. These protests come mere hours after the president-elect, and the woman who wanted to be president all call for the exact opposite of what we're seeing, imploring the country to come together following a historical political victory. We'll have more on that part of the story in just a moment. But first, we go to Rob Schmidt, who's on the streets in New York City with the protesters. Rob, what are you seeing?
And Megyn, we are only about 8 blocks away from you, but this is a massive protest. This all started at 6 o'clock tonight in Union Square. Thousands and thousands of people marched up through the rain. There you go. This is a perfect example of it, but they moved up south. We got you, buddy. About thousands, several thousand in the rain came up here, very motivated to get up here. Now we're outside Trump Tower. We're at 54th and 5th Avenue, not too far away from our headquarters, and this has just been an explosion of anger at the election of Donald Trump, something that you've probably been seeing on social media all day long, something you've been seeing with people all around you, especially in major cities, New York. Protests. This is thousands of people here on 5th Avenue, a very impressive showing of support for the other side, the side that didn't win in this election, frankly. A lot of anger here, and when you really look at the people here, you can see exactly what they're talking about. And a lot of curse words, as you heard right there. But when you look at what this is comprised of, the people that are here, that are angry right now, if you remember the comments that were leaked from Hillary Clinton when she talked about the Bernie supporters saying the disillusioned people that she said are living in their parents' basement, they're upset. This is a lot of that fabric. This is a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters. This is a lot of Black Lives Matter. This is a lot of, there's a hodgepodge of so many different groups here that are angry, that want some answers about what has happened, about how this election occurred, about how Donald Trump is now the President of the United States, and they seem absolutely confused by it. Even the nurses union had a showing here. So you're seeing a number of groups all coming together. They're all shouting different things. There's, there's a lot of screaming fascism and other things like that. So it is a major show of support, like I said, for the side that didn't win in this election, and Donald Trump is enemy number one. I'm not sure if he's home in Trump Tower, but if he is, he has thousands of people right outside of his doorstep that really don't like him. Megyn, we'll send it back to you.
Rob, can you get in there and ask some questions to some of these folks? I'd love to know whether A, they voted, and B, what they think of President Obama's call for unity, Hillary Clinton's call for unity, not to mention that of Donald Trump.
Yeah. We certainly can.
We hear
I can bring somebody in. We're at a risk for a curse word or two, but you want to talk real quick to us? Anybody? Everybody shy? Everybody standing around me seems a little bit scared, a little bit timid to get on camera. I'm trying. I really am. Anybody? Can I just ask you if you voted?
I voted.
Who'd you vote for?
Not your guy.
Not
our guy. Megyn, apparently we have a guy. I didn't know we had a guy. But he didn't vote for our guy.
Welcome to New York City, right,
like
Rob?
I said, everybody here is very camera shy. So we'll send it back to you.
It's amazing. Rob, thank you. You know what's amazing is these people come out to Times Square and Fifth Avenue, and they want to make their voices heard, except on Fox News, which has the biggest viewership in all of cable, and then they clam up. They don't want to be heard at all. That's helpful to your position. Ironically, this whole scene is playing out after we saw a remarkable call for unity today from President Obama, from President-elect Trump, and from Hillary Clinton. Watch this.
Last night, I congratulated.
We're all on the same team.
Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
It's time for America to bind the wounds of division. I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans, and this is so important to me.
We all want what's best for this country. That's what I heard in Mr. Trump's remarks last night. That's what I heard when I spoke to him directly, and I was heartened by that.
In moments, we'll be joined by former Clinton spokesman Mo Alifi, but we begin tonight with Bill Bennett, who served as Secretary of Education under President Reagan and is the chairman of Conservative Leaders for Education. Bill, good to see you. So now, as we watch these protests in the streets of 7 major cities tonight, and it doesn't seem like the Democrats, I'm assuming they're Democrats, are really listening to their sitting president's call for unity, to Hillary Clinton's call for unity. And you tell me how they get past that and accept the result that the American people have reached fair and square.
Well, there's really no timeouts, no stopping the action in a busy country. If people thought we were going to have a 24-hour or 48-hour break, we don't. They're exercising their free speech rights. But what exactly are they protesting? Constitutional republic's way of engaging in democracy?
The chant seemed to amount to F Donald Trump. So that when asked to explain further, the one gentleman we spoke with declined based on the fact that it was Fox News Channel. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Fox News guy, yeah. So it's a tantrum. It's our guy lost or our gal lost, so we're going to protest. But, the way democracy works, one side loses, one side wins. Now, it's a bit of a charade to talk about let's have peace and unity. It's appreciated. I appreciated what Hillary Clinton said, what the president said, and what the president-elect said. But we know as soon as you get into issues, as soon as you get into serious discussion, if Donald Trump follows his agenda and says starts with getting rid of Obamacare, there will be serious disagreement. Mm-hmm. And that's part of democracy, too.
And should he do that? Some are already saying, oh, he's going to moderate. Who knows if he's going to live up to these campaign promises. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, sure he should. That's promise. That's what people took him for his word and took him seriously and supported him. Yeah, that's what he ran on. Look, part of this is will he reach out? Will he reach out to the other side? Which means will he compromise his views? Which in the end means will he give up his views? But Donald Trump is not one to easily to hedge on these things. So of course he will, and of course there will be opposition to it. Can it be civil? Sure. Should it be civil? Yeah. Will it be? Who knows? But he was elected to do certain things, and he should by all means proceed to do them. And what an extraordinary opportunity, Megyn, with the House and the Senate. Can I just say one other thing?
Yeah.
I've been watching Fox all day, loyal as I am to you guys, and everybody was apologizing for being wrong, all the pollsters and everybody. I'm not apologizing. I wasn't wrong. And I'm not going to toot my horn, but there were some of us. We weren't all wrong. I heard that locution a lot today. Some of us actually thought Trump would win, and we thought he had good reason to win.
And on top of that, Bill, you're of the mind that it's good to reach out, it's good to shoot for unity, but that it's the Trump detractors who need to go to him to try to reach that unity. Explain that, because many people have said he, as the man in power, needs to sort of roll out the carpet and say you are welcome and you will be well received.
There's a difference between engaging with goodwill on issues which you disagree and engaging to such a degree that you neuter yourself and you neuter your own views. He should do the former, but not the latter. He can step forward and say, I was very open about the issues. I think we should get rid of all these executive orders, and I plan to do that with an executive order the first day, and he can do that in a civil way. That doesn't mean it will be greeted with hallelujahs. But, there's a difference, again, between operating with goodwill and in disagreement and acting in a disagreeable way. I think he will not be disagreeable if he can help it. But it's going to be hard for him not to help it, because he's going to get attacked big time. I watched CNN for 5 minutes today, only 5 minutes, Megyn, I promised. And they said, well, Donald Trump promised unity today and to reach out, but he wasn't always so unified during the campaign. Well, and then they played all these quotes.
Yeah, well, it's like Trump said,
really
this is a nasty business, politics, which he's new to, but played very well. Bill, I gotta go. Great to see you.
Big, boisterous country. We're going to survive it. Thank you. Nice job, by the way. You got any sleep yet?
Thank you. Not yet, but it's looking good for tonight.
All right, try mypillow.com.
I've got like 8 of them, thanks to the MyPillow people. All right, also with us tonight, Mo Alifi. He served as traveling press secretary on Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign. He's the founding executive director of Georgetown University's Institute of Politics and Public Service. Mo, good to see you. So when you see folks taking to the street tonight, especially in light of what we heard today, which is, in essence, that she lost because the Democrats didn't show up. Trump got his vote out, and she didn't. Her vaunted ground game, which you've talked about a lot. They did not show up for her, and yet now they're out there.
Yeah, look, I I'm the first to admit, listening to what Bill just said, I'm the first to admit I always thought Donald Trump could win. I did not think he would win. I am one of those people who's sort of eating crow today. And I totally agree with Hillary Clinton and President Obama that it is time for us to come together. We do need to give the president-elect the benefit of the doubt, and that we should root for him. We should want our president to be successful. And as a part of the loyal opposition, that doesn't mean we don't hold him accountable and try to nudge him our way, but we want success. Having said that, that's our end of the bargain. He's got to do his part as well. Remember, he lost the popular vote. A majority of the people who cast votes did not vote for him. That doesn't mean he's illegitimate. He's absolutely legitimately the president-elect. He won fair and square. But it shows just how divided this nation is. And one of the reasons why it is so divided, one of the reasons, is his rhetoric during the campaign. And the things he said that really upset, caused pain, and caused fear in millions and millions of Americans. That's on him now to reach out to those people.
How does he get past that? I mean, there are many groups who are scared. They're scared today. But how does a president-elect Trump get them past that?
Yeah, I think in part with words and in part with actions. And he needs to move swiftly and somewhat delicately, but needs to go out there and speak to these groups and demonstrate through both words and actions that what he said last night, and what I thought was a really good and strong speech, much more gracious than a lot of us gave him credit for being, or for being able to be. He needs to prove the point he made in that speech that he does want to be a president for all Americans, through his words, through his actions. So I think both sides of the equation here have some work to do. We are completely polarized and divided. There are some issues I am hopeful for that the president and both parties in Congress can work on. Infrastructure reform, which used to be a bipartisan issue. He mentioned that last night. That would be a great first issue to start on, that all sides can come together on. But that fear that we're seeing in the streets tonight, I wish we weren't seeing that tonight. But he has to recognize his part in that equation.
Just before I let you go, Mo, as somebody tied into the Democratic circles, what feedback are you getting? I mean, what's the level of emotion, and what are the emotions?
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen the kind of emotion that I am seeing after this election. There's a lot of sadness, and there is a lot of fear. There are a lot of people in the Democratic family who are truly worried about the future right now because of some of the divisiveness that came out of this campaign. The number of tears that I witnessed today, it's just not unlike anything I've ever seen. We usually get through these elections. I've been through some tough elections. I've seen some pretty divided electorates, but this feels a little bit more pronounced than I'm used to seeing. And so, like I said, we all have our work cut out for us to come together.
One thing you can say about Donald Trump is he engenders very strong feelings in just about everyone, right? As you watch his supporters, and now to see his detractors take to the streets of several major cities across America by the thousands, protesting the will of the people, essentially. And you point out she won the popular vote, but that, of course, that's not the way it works in our republic.
That's right.
That does not win you the presidency, which these people understand. But and it's quintessentially American to protest as long as they keep it nonviolent and respectful, which so far
and civil
they have. Mo, good to see you.
Thanks. You too.
We're going to try to get in touch with some of these people. You can see there's our correspondent Rob Schmidt in the crowd now, and hear what it is. What is the goal? I mean, what they just want to express their anger or their feelings, or they want a different result. What is the goal? We'll try to figure that out as we watch these marches on the streets of New York, Chicago, Philly, and elsewhere tonight. We also saw college students burning flags on a couple of campuses earlier today. Professor Jonathan Turley joins us tonight with some words of wisdom for these kids, many of whom could not attend class today because they were so upset. Also tonight, Governor Mike Huckabee and Dana Perino with the scoop on the first 100 days for America's new president. What must Trump do? That's next.
The Kelly File.
Breaking tonight, we are continuing to watch protest marches in a half dozen U.S. cities tonight. Folks angry about the election results. We're getting somebody mic'd up, and she's going to speak to us, a couple of people, in a minute. Back in Washington, President-elect Donald Trump and the Republicans moving forward with their plans for the country. House Speaker Paul Ryan saying his party is emboldened by Mr. Trump's historic victory. Watch.
I think what Donald Trump just pulled off is an enormous political feat. It's an enormous feat in that he heard those voices that were out there that other people weren't hearing, and he just earned a mandate. And we now just have that unified Republican government.
In moments, Governor Mike Huckabee, Dana Perino, both here on what to expect from a Trump administration. But we begin with Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry. Ed?
Megan, amazing how winning can bring people together. Paul Ryan calling it a mandate there after offering no criticism. Trump calling the Democratic leader today and focusing on something they largely agree on, that infrastructure bill to create jobs that you just mentioned. He also went back to working on Mexican President Peña Nieto to begin trying to follow through on another key campaign promise of building that wall. The Mexican government, though, still insisting it will not pay for it, though the two leaders say they had a cordial talk and agreed to their second meeting soon. And despite a lot of initial Republican skepticism of Trump, the GOP now has a trifecta of the White House and both chambers of Congress, making following through on another key Trump promise about health care likely. Watch this.
It's a pretty high item on our agenda, as you know, and I would be shocked if we didn't move forward to keep our commitment to the American people.
Senator McConnell talking about repealing Obamacare. A lot harder for Trump, though, to come up with an alternative to actually fix the problems caused by Obamacare and the problems that were happening before Obamacare. And if he follows through on undoing the Iran nuclear deal, that could be even more complex with big national security implications, which is why Democrats like Tom Daschle, the former Senate leader, told me Trump needs to pull back on some of his more unilateral tendencies that we saw during the campaign if he's going to effectively govern. Watch.
Two words that come immediately to mind are outreach and inclusion. There's got to be a lot of outreach, and it's got to come both ways.
Even though he's a Democrat, Tom Daschle told me he thinks that after such a nasty campaign, expectations are now so low that he actually thinks Trump has an opportunity here to get some things done, and that just with a little bit of effort, he can get a lot of credit. Megan?
Ed, good to see you. Joining me now, Governor Mike Huckabee, former Republican presidential candidate, and Dana Perino, who's a former Bush White House press secretary and co-host of The Five. Great to see you both.
Thank you.
So, Dana, let me start with you as somebody who's actually helped do this. First 100 days, what does Trump need to worry about, President-elect Trump?
Well, even before those 100 days, what he needs to worry about right now, and what I assume they've been thinking about since July when they started the transition team that Chris Christie's running, is that you have to fill a lot of positions in the government.
Before inauguration?
Yes, there are certain national security positions in particular that should never be vacant. And it takes about 8 weeks, believe it or not, to do a background check, a thorough background check on somebody in order to give them top secret clearance. So if you work backwards, 70 days goes by very quickly.
Got to go immediately.
And you need to there's going to be some great people out there that are going to want to serve, but they're going to have to be vetted. That's a really important thing. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's the cabinet positions. One of the things Harry Reid did is that he paved the way for cabinet secretaries now just need a majority. So now the Republicans, because they did so well in the Senate races yesterday, have 51. They will be able to...
As opposed to 60?
Right.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to put forward those. And then I think that one of the first things that Donald Trump should do, will do, is he'll announce a Supreme Court nominee quickly. I think that's something they've probably been prepared to do, and now it's just the final decision.
He submitted his list already of those who
and now he just has to meet those people
pick
and
one.
decide.
Governor Huckabee, first of all, congratulations to you as a Donald Trump supporter and somebody who, like Bill Bennett, did predict a Trump victory on this show, despite what the polls were showing. You must feel very gratified. And what would you like to see Donald Trump do as our president-elect in these next 70 days as he gears up to take office?
Well, he needs to put together the best possible team he can because he's got to hit the ground running. He basically has 2 years to do a lot of big and bold things. That's because he'll have the House, the Senate, and the White House. Maybe he has it after those 2 years, but we don't know. But for 2 years, he owns the town, and he's got to make good use of that. I think he's got to remind the Democrats of the words of Barack Obama when Barack Obama said, look, elections have consequences. Yep. We won. And he proceeded to do what he wanted to do, and that's how we ended up with Obamacare. I'd like to see Donald Trump include Democrats, make as many things bipartisan. But you know what? Our country's in too big a mess to sit around and play patty cake. We've got to get some things fixed.
Well,
and if the Democrats want to work with him,
when Barack Obama was trying to push through Obamacare, and the Republicans wanted certain ideas considered, you know, Barack Obama was very much like, I won, and turnabout is fair play in politics.
Well, I mean, he pretty much told him to put it where the sun don't shine, and that's not a great way to win friends and influence people. But by golly, it got the job done. I would love to see Donald Trump at least attempt to bring him in. But if they are unwilling, go ahead and pass the business tax cut to 15%. Revoke the Iranian deal. Get rid of Obamacare. Start putting something in place. There are plenty of things to be done that would actually work. The Republicans were offering those ideas 8 years ago. So I think he's got to move quickly. I do think the infrastructure is something that has bipartisan support. But he's got to be clear that he's not going to let that just sit there and sort of drift in the wind while they nitpick it.
Dana, last thoughts on what you think a President Trump cabinet will look like, and whether you think it's going to be a cast of familiar characters that we've seen on the campaign trail as surrogates.
Well, yes, certainly. I think that some of those people that have been supporting him, he will want to take with him to the White House.
Maybe Governor Huckabee.
Perhaps so. That would be a good choice.
You've got the support of James. Congratulations.
I also think that this will be a tricky thing. There's lots of legislators that could be good, that have governing experience, or you might look to the governors to pull them in. But then how do you make sure that they stay Republican for you to support you in the things that you want to do? So
you're saying pull Democrats in? Democrat?
No.
What do you mean stay Republican?
Meaning that could they win? So if you pull a governor, can that governor be replaced by a Republican governor when there's a runoff?
There's a lot for him to consider. He's going to need somebody who understands Washington to walk him through. There are rumors that perhaps he might choose Reince Priebus as his chief of staff to run, this process, and we shall see. They've been saying
He's a trusted guy.
They've been saying nice things about each other lately. Yeah. Dana, great to see you.
Thank
Governor, you too. So remember all the polls that said Hillary Clinton would win? The Fox News decision desk, not the desk itself, but Arnon Mishkin, is here to explain what happened. Plus, with a growing number of writers suggesting President Obama may have been a big issue in this presidential race, constitutional attorney Jonathan Turley is here with a warning for the road ahead.
News headlines 24/7, Channel 115.
Breaking tonight, want to get back to the streets of New York, where we're seeing thousands of protesters gathered around Trump Tower after some noisy marches through Midtown Manhattan, among many other cities this evening, in response to the election of Donald Trump. Fox News reporter Rob Schmidt is out there with the crowd. Rob?
And Megan, we are seeing the slow dispersal of this crowd, still thousands strong within the inside of it, which is right here behind me. And maybe a couple thousand have left at this point, and still thousands inside of there. The resiliency you have to admire of these protesters. It is cold out here in New York City tonight. We saw a lot of rain. They walked 2 miles through Midtown Manhattan, putting Midtown at a complete gridlock at 7 o'clock at night, which you know is a very busy time. Walking up Broadway, up 6th Avenue, over here onto 5th, and then up to Trump Tower. We've seen so many people, and a few more are coming back now, but we've seen a lot leave. In order to keep this more civil and to keep it safe for the kids, we want to talk to somebody over here named Anthony, who we pulled out of the crowd. And there you go, dump Trump. Anthony, you're out here protesting tonight. What is it that brought you out here specifically? What has angered you to bring you out here?
I don't believe that Donald Trump is representing me and my peers, honestly, and grab Donald Trump by the pussy. Thank you.
I tried to have a civil conversation. I think part of the reason why a lot of people have a hard time taking these protests seriously is because so many of the people behave that way. What are you going to do? But there's obviously a lot of anger out here, and we tried to vet somebody for you and get somebody to have an intelligent conversation. Didn't work too well. Megan, you still there?
Rob, thank you. That's the problem. Like, people want us to listen to them, and then they behave like that. And then we go away. We move on to our guests who know how to behave. Earlier today, we saw college students burning flags on some campuses, while at other schools there were concerns that students were too traumatized to go to class, and the universities allowed them to skip. Jonathan Turley is a constitutional law attorney and professor at George Washington Law. Great to see you, Professor. That's just sick. We have a series on this show called Cupcake Nation. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You tell me whether allowing students to skip classes in college because they're so upset about an election completely misunderstands the purpose of college.
I think it does. You know, there was the same response after the Ferguson, Missouri protests, and some faculty said you don't have to take tests, you don't have to come to school. And it misses the point. You know, in college you learned a lot about being a citizen. Mm-hmm. And the burning of the flag, these protests, are really ignorant and hateful act. You know, that flag speaks to rights, not to results. So you can't say that you like the democratic process, but only if it comes out your way. It's like saying I like going to baseball games, but only for the score. And what's being missed here, particularly with the students, and I'm particularly concerned with law students, is that we're sort of raising a generation of emotional hemophiliacs, you know, that if legal or political things don't go your way, if something upsets you, you sort of have a modern version of the vapors. And that's not a good thing for us to support. I mean, if you feel that anger, if you feel hurt, then it should be used as a motivation to learn more, to get out there, to do things.
The vapors, I love that. And especially when you think about law students who cannot function in the face of what they perceive as an injustice. You get it? You get a law student who cannot, okay, good luck in the actual practice of law. It's not going to work out too well for you.
Now, I have to say, at George Washington, a lot of my students were upset with the results. They were all in class. They were fired up, and that's good. There are some students that celebrated the results last night. Others denounced it. But they were all in class, and that's the important thing. I did give students off yesterday so they could participate in the election.
Yeah,
I think that's a great thing.
That's a different story altogether. But we're seeing this festering of this cupcake nation, which I would submit to you is actually one of the reasons why Donald Trump got elected, is people are sick of this kind of, you know, you can't say a word that is potentially offensive, and that would include any discussion of social issues on college campuses. It's gone to an extreme. All right, let me ask you about whether you think, because you've been very vocal and you've actually had a role in challenging some of Barack Obama's executive actions as president. And you tell me whether you think last night's results were a repudiation of some of those executive overreaches of his.
I think it was in part. I mean, first of all, we do have to remember that the voters were quite clear with the Democratic Party. They did not want an establishment figure, and they went out and found the ultimate establishment figure. They also said that they did not want to vote for Hillary Clinton. She had many negatives. And so the results in that sense shouldn't be particularly astonishing. But I do think that there was this growing disconnect between citizens and their government. You know, when Barack Obama was pushing forward his agenda, as he had every right to do, he tried to change Congress and failed. The Republicans actually fought off that challenge. And when he came back, he said that he would go unilaterally, that he would go it alone. And I think that for a lot of citizens made them think, I really don't count. And in fact, they haven't counted much until last night. I mean, whatever you may think about this election, whatever you may think about Donald Trump, this is a popular response of the American people. They want to count. And they did last night.
Yep.
Now, you know, and so I think that what we have to do is, first of all, honor the system, the democratic choice that was made. And we can have disagreements, we can have passionate disagreements, but we all have to stay in the game and to respect each other enough to say we have a good system. And it swings like a pendulum, but we still stay committed to each other and to that system.
And we're proud of our system. We're proud of it. You may not like the results at every time, but it works, and it works usually quite beautifully. Jonathan Turley, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Megan.
So the big question for so many today, what was the deal with all the polls? Virtually all of them, all but two, that had Hillary Clinton with a comfortable lead going into last night's election. Chris Darwalt and our chief number cruncher, Arnon Mishkin, my buddy from the Decision Desk, are here next. Has been president-elect for almost 24 hours now, and folks are still talking about what happened with the polls running up to this race. The popular vote tally right now, Mrs. Clinton is up by 1/5 of 1 point, but the national polling average just hours before voting booths opened had Clinton up by 3 points. And going into last night, the exit polls were suggesting that Mrs. Clinton was headed to a comfortable win. Fox News Decision Desk team members are here for accountability. No, they're not. They weren't the pollsters. They weren't the pollsters. But first, we turn to Trace Gallagher live in New York City for some of the details. Trace?
Megan, some analysts are now trying to sugarcoat the outcome by claiming the polls really weren't that far off and that polling errors of 3% are pretty common. Of course, in a presidential race, 3% is a boatload of votes, and some of the key battleground state polling averages were off by more than 3%. In fact, Wisconsin was off by 7.5%. Ohio was off by 5%, Michigan by just under 4%, and Pennsylvania was off by 3%. But Larry Sabato wasn't about to sugarcoat his crystal ball. He called the polls an industry-wide failure that's going to be, quote, studied up the wazoo. Watch.
We were wrong. Okay? The entire punditry industry, the entire polling industry, the entire analyst industry, and I want to use this opportunity to take my fair share of the blame. We were wrong.
The American Association for Public Opinion Research agrees with Dr. Sabato, but not everyone got it wrong. The USC LA Times poll, which was largely dismissed, had been seeing a wave of Trump support for months, and for most of the summer and fall, the LA Times poll was giving Trump about 6 points more than the polling averages. The same poll also said Trump's odds of winning will come down to how he mobilizes white voters, especially white men. And interestingly, it found that Trump voters, especially women, were less comfortable telling pollsters they supported Trump. The Investor's Business Daily TIPP poll also predicted a Trump victory. The man who runs that poll says despite Democrats having more registered voters across the country, he thought GOP turnout would be equal because there simply was more enthusiasm. Megan.
Trace, thank you. Two members of our esteemed Fox News Decision Desk are here with me. Chris Stirewalt, our Fox News Digital Politics Editor, and Arna Mishkin, Director of the Fox News Decision Desk. The Director is here. Mr. Director. In a line or two, what was it? Why was this essentially missed? I realize there's margins of errors, and skip that nonsense. What happened?
I think what was missed was the implications of the poll. The polls, all the polls, I think actually accurately provided information about the electorate, and what was missed by analysts reading those poll numbers and saying, what does that mean? What was going on all year long, or all season long since the conventions, Hillary Clinton in most polls was floating at 45%. Yep. Donald Trump was floating at around 38 to 40%. When Donald Trump didn't do well in 3 debates, when he got into a fight with Miss Universe, he would sink 3 or 4 points in that averages. And Clinton didn't go up at all.
And what should that have told everyone?
That should have told everybody that if you're not with Hillary Clinton now, what piece of information could you provide someone to get them to go with Clinton? And if you ever tried to tell that to someone, they tell you, you're doing Trump spin. And I would argue that the people who sort of were focused on the difference rather than focused on that Clinton number were not doing Trump spin. They were doing Trump spin because they were making people think that there's no doubt Clinton is going to win, and that, I think, dampened her turnout.
But was there, in fact, the shy Trump voter? There wasn't there?
There's always shy voters.
No. But this was something that was a question going into last night, whether there was a shy Trump voter the pollsters weren't getting to, and the results last night proved the answer was yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Then there were shy Obama voters in 2012, and there were shy Clinton voters this time around.
The untold story. This is Rove earlier tonight. Untold story is the defection of whites to third party or the failure to vote. Do you agree with that?
I think that the biggest story in the election of all is that in counties in the upper Midwest, in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, that you had counties that had turnarounds of 20 points. You have people who were voting for Barack Obama in 2012, white voters, middle-class white voters, turning around and voting 20-point turnarounds in these counties. It's not that they were shy. It's they were telling us. They were there. They were available. We caught the vote.
The undecideds weren't undecided. That's what the write-up said today. They were secretly for Trump, and they didn't want to say it. Is that wrong? You disagree with those write-ups?
I actually agree with that. I think the undecided...
Go ahead.
I think the undecided voter, they decided one thing. They weren't voting for Clinton.
Right. I agree with that.
And that they were trying to figure out...
Those are the shy Trump voters.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is every year, every 4 years, the problem that I have is that right now, Larry Sabato my dear friend Trace, everybody says, the polls were a disaster. Well, guess what? If the polls were a disaster this year, they were even worse in 2012 because they missed it by a larger margin.
Okay, we're fine with that, too.
I'm not sure they were so shy as much as they were very skeptical about Clinton. They weren't ready to vote for her.
Right.
And I think if you were in the middle and you were convinced that some of the stuff Donald Trump was saying was correct, but you had some skepticism about some of the temperament issues, if the conventional wisdom is there is no doubt Clinton is going to win, a person like that has no trouble voting for Trump to express their position.
And they did.
Exactly. And I think that's
Great to see you both.
You bet.
Great job, both of you.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Last word of the night goes to a woman who spent the last 15 months fighting night and day for Donald Trump. She's live next.
Willing.
That was Donald Trump roughly 18 hours ago, sharing some of his plans after learning he had finally won the long and hard-fought race for the White House. Our next guests have been on this broadcast for almost every step of that race, so we wanted to finish tonight with Katrina Pierson, now former national spokesperson for the Trump campaign, and Richard Fowler, a Fox News contributor and senior fellow with the New Leaders Council. Kat, let's start with you, and congratulations on what a win last night. I can only imagine what it was like for you watching it
Megan.
with Team Trump. Your thoughts on what the voters were telling America yesterday?
Well, I think the voters, unlike those inside the Beltway, saw the genius in Donald Trump and the fact that he was such a gifted speaker that he spoke directly to them, bypassed the media and bypassed really all the pollsters, and really talked to them about what was important to them. These voters have been out there. They've been frustrated because their health care premiums are going up. We have a president and a Congress and elected officials, really, who haven't been putting their interests first. It's always been special interests first. It's always been more money to even terrorist nations, but nothing here for those who are hardworking. And they understood that, and they know that Donald Trump wants to fight for them. And I've been on this show many times, very confident that Donald Trump was going to be the next president of the United States, and that he was going to get some of the minority vote, and he did better than
Donald Trump that I didn't think you saw from the Clinton campaign and Democrats is we waffled on some of the issues that really affect our base and our movement.
Well, do you think you chose the right candidate, the one who inspired Dems?
No, I mean I think that's part of it, Megan. Right? We picked the candidate. We talked about over and over about raising the minimum wage. Hillary Clinton changed how much the minimum wage would raise 3 times instead of saying I'm for $15 an hour, point blank period. That's where the movement is.
Not only that,
that's
Richard,
where I
but she
am.
was, the Democrats were reluctant to nominate her. They were thinking seriously about Bernie. And meantime, she was getting debate questions fed to her, and the establishment on the DNC side was helping her win. Katrina, we got 30 seconds left. I'll give you the last word.
Well, I just want to thank you. You were the first one to congratulate me on air once I had this appointment. I have been honored to serve Mr. Trump and his family on this journey because we are going to make America great again.
You are very gracious. It's been a pleasure having you. Thanks for
Megan.
working with us throughout the primary season and general election. Thanks to both of you. We'll be right back. Just settle. Kelly Ripa could not have been nicer. She was so sweet. Her entire team was very sweet. And it's the first time in my life I've ever sat at the anchor desk and thrown confetti using a confetti wand at the audience. I think we need to incorporate this. Sean Hannity, he's going to be doing it. When he comes up in 30 seconds, he's in that place right now mentally.
I came in a happy mood. I just said, anything happened in the last 24 hours?
He's got the confetti going. I've never seen him so happy. Look at that smile.
Oh, my God. $1 million smile because we'll now have some more money in our pocket.
You know what, though? Seriously, I congratulate Katrina Pierson. Congrats to you, too, Sean, because you were way out there. You were way out there.
Oh, I was way out there.
And it was a great victory for you and for Donald Trump. Great to see you. See you tomorrow night at 9.